staffs, like house.
That's what I wrote it down.
It's all right.
Okay.
It's a rare occasion that someone says my name right.
Okay, well, and I mess up names all the time, and they all know that I don't learn names very fast, so. All right, so give your full attention to Dan. Do nothing but take notes. Make sure you aren't tempted by technology to go someplace else. It's right here and now, okay? Dan.
Thank you. To kind of get an idea of who my audience is, I'd be curious to know who all has taken Accounting 101 and 102. Okay, maybe a prereq to get here. How about 201 and 202? How about Finance 465? I think that's what it is. Corporate Finance? A few? Okay. I think, I was in your shoes not too long ago, and I think that maybe just is tailored towards finance majors, but those are the 5 courses that I feel helped me the most kind of prepare me for my current position. To kind of give you some context, my name is Dan Stouse. I work at Union Bank and Trust. We are a local bank. The roots go back to 1917 is when it was founded, so quite old here in Lincoln. The current owners are the Dunlap family. Some people who have been in Lincoln for a while might be familiar with that name. Jay Dunlap and his family purchased the bank back in '65, so that's kind of where I consider Union Bank's beginnings to be, because that's kind of like the current culture got its roots from way back then. And then since that time, Jay has he still comes into the bank all the time, but his daughter Angie is really who runs the bank. And so it's still family run. We've grown quite a bit, mainly in Nebraska, and within Nebraska, mainly in Lincoln. And we also have some locations in Kansas City area and up in Omaha too. That's just to kind of give you some context from where this is coming from. I'm not going to make this a huge advertisement for Union Bank. But kind of my story and how it intertwines with Union Bank. I'll go back to, I guess, my education, because it wasn't too long ago that I was a college student. I graduated in '08 with my undergrad from UNL with a finance major, management minor, and then I took a semester off. I started pursuing my MBA about a year after I graduated with my undergrad. And then I finally, after 4 seemingly very long years of going through the MBA program, I finally graduated last year with that. So that's kind of what my education has been like. Now, my career, I started at Union Bank in '06 just as a part-time teller. So I had just completed my sophomore year of undergrad, and I got a job as a teller really because I was just trying to get some part-time job within like some sort of professional organization. I didn't even really care where I was going at that point. I applied for probably, I don't know, realistically probably 4 or 5 banks, and Union Bank happened to be the one that accepted my application. And so I held various roles in customer service for, well, let's see, what was that? I'm going to think 8 years. So 6 years I was in customer service. I was a part-time teller, moved up to a CSR, so at that point at Union Bank you're like opening accounts. Then I became an assistant supervisor, so you kind of like manage the teller line on Saturdays. And eventually became a branch supervisor at the downtown branch at 13th and L. And then after that, 2 years ago, I got a job in the credit administration department of Union Bank. And I wouldn't be surprised if nobody here knows what that is, because I didn't know what that was, even as a grad student. I didn't know what that was when I even worked at the bank. So, to give you a little more context of where a lot of my thoughts are coming from, I'm just going to tell you briefly how a commercial loan or a business loan gets approved at Union Bank and Trust, and a lot of other community banks our size. I should have mentioned we're $3 billion in assets on the bank side, and then our trust division has another approximately $5 billion. So other banks that have approximately $3 billion will have a similar process to ours. We're kind of like bigger than a lot of hometown banks that started where we started, but we're way smaller than like Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Deutsche Bank. And so what I'm about to explain to you is kind of how it works in our bank's size. We have two departments that kind of work together to approve a business loan. That's commercial loans, and that's where Mandy's from. Mandy was going to be your original speaker. She's the one who created this PowerPoint. You'll see her picture on there. Someone that says like, thank you, and it has a picture up there. It's a nice lady that works for Union Bank, and that's not me. So just keep that in mind. She works with the commercial loan department, and she's really like the smiling face that gets to know the business owner. She's the one who's out networking at different Chamber of Commerce events, YPG events, and she's kind of getting a pulse on the city, if you will. And so she meets entrepreneurs. Hopefully you guys are going to be in that position in a short time. She meets up with you guys, figures out what your needs are, and then kind of gathers all this information from you guys and hands a bunch of stuff to me from credit administration and says, here, we're going to start working on a deal for these guys. So me and other members of the credit administration department, we have to take these financial statements, and then we also have to do a lot of like qualitative analysis, looking at the industry, looking at the economy, that sort of thing. And we put together a presentation that says kind of, this is how healthy I think this business is. This is how well I think they're going to perform. This is how good our chances are of being repaid on the loan is essentially what I'm trying to do. And then Mandy is explaining to our loan committee how your guys' business works. She tells people who you are, where your background is from. And then we kind of combine those two pieces of information, the analysis part that I do, and then this probably isn't the nicest thing to say, but a lot of people in my department are like, yeah, the loan officer covers the fluff, and we cover the real meat of the presentation. But we put that stuff together, and we present it to our committee, and our committee is like it's 5 people who have been at the bank for, 2 of them have been there for over 45 years apiece. One of them is Angie, our president, and then head of commercial loans, head of ag loans. So those people say, all right, you've given me all this information. Yes, we're going to approve. No, we're not. So that doesn't have a whole lot to do with what Mandy put together on this PowerPoint, but I think that it helps put some context into, or give you some context for where I'm coming from. And I just wanted to get that out there because I had no idea, like even when I was working in customer service, I had no idea how a commercial loan got approved. So if you guys actually do go out into the real world and start businesses, you kind of have some sort of idea of how that would work, at least if you're going to a bank of a similar size. So anyway, I've been doing analysis work for a couple of years. Mandy's been, and another point that I'll tell you is Mandy actually started in the credit administration department as well. A lot of times you start doing what I'm doing and figuring out what do I need to look for in a loan, what factors do I need to look at in businesses, which is a little bit about what we're going to talk about. And then once you know that, you're armed with a good set of tools for when you go out and you're networking with people, when you're trying to do business development. You know that when a deal comes across your desk, you know if it looks like crap and you don't want to waste your time on that. And you know when it's like, okay, this is a really good deal that I want to spend some time looking at. So, funding sources. This is a little bit, just like your professor was saying, it's kind of what you're going through now. And yeah, the bank is near the end of the list of where you go to because there's a lot that you need to do in your business to get ready for, to make a bank comfortable with taking you on as a risk. Or taking you on as a partner would probably be a better way to put it. You're starting out with usually private sources of capital. Sometimes that's your own money. We have people who are 50 years old and they've ran businesses all their lives and they're starting up a new venture. And so their private capital or their equity is their own cash. They're just putting it up as equity and they're starting this business with a lot of skin in the game. We like to see that. They're really invested there. If that business tanks, they're going to be upset about it because they just blew a lot of their money too. But more commonly, private equity is coming from a private equity firm, which is one of the sub-bullets on here. But a private equity firm can be a firm that specializes in venture capital and crowdfunding. Those can kind of fall within the private equity firm umbrella. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Crowdfunding, has anyone heard of Kickstart or other websites that are similar to that? Nobody? Okay, a couple nods, thank you. Kickstart's fairly popular.
They all have it on the resource list, but they probably have not looked at it.
Okay, well, I never came across it when I was in college, like from an education standpoint. But for example, this band that I liked back in junior high, and they're kind of like old fogies now, they didn't have enough money to produce another album. So they went on Kickstarter, and a bunch of their fans who are now like late 20s, early 30s like me are like, oh yeah, that was cool when I listened to that in junior high. Sure, I'll get $50. So crowdfunding, or Kickstarter is an example of that. That's like a bunch of people providing a small amount of money. I could give $10 towards a Kickstarter project. I could give $100. And there's not a whole lot of like financial incentive for me to do that. I just want to listen to an album from this band that I used to know. And in order to be able to make that happen, I am going to give $50 to try to get enough money to do what they want to do. There's other sort of like experience incentives that people can have with that. Anyway, crowdfunding, a lot of sources with small amounts of donations from each person or entity. Venture capital, that's like, I don't know, Dundee Investments is one that comes to mind. They're saying, yeah, we're going to take a risk in your company. Okay, Shark Tank is a great example. We're going to give you a bunch of money, and in return, we're going to ask for 30% of your company. We're going to own 30% of your company. A lot of times those have more control. I mean, those venture capital firms have more control in your company because they are taking such a high risk. Since you're a startup, you haven't really proven yourself yet. Angel investors, this probably isn't the textbook answer, but I view angel investors as a bunch of rich people who are trying to reduce their tax liability. So you've got some business owner who has a ton of cash. They are making a ton of money and they don't want to pay taxes. A lot of rich people absolutely hate paying taxes and they do everything they can to not pay taxes. So what are they going to do that? Well, they're going to, let's take me for example. I'm not rich at all, but let's say I was, and you're starting some business. I'm going to give you $200,000 in equity, and I'm going to hope that you lose money for the next 2 years so that I can take credit for some of your loss on your business. When that happens, that reduces my tax liability. And then maybe 2 years when you actually start making a profit, then I'm going to divest in that. Hopefully you start making a profit and then you sell your company. And now I have all this equity that I got paid off for plus a ton, and I just have to pay capital gains tax on that instead of my regular tax rate. That's a quick and dirty explanation of what angel investors do. Growth capital, that's for kind of more mature companies. It's not for startups. Angel investor, venture capital, crowdfunding, that's for like baby companies just starting up. Growth capital is for more mature companies that are maybe taking on a new venture. So they've kind of proven that they have cash flow, that they can actually make money, but they don't have enough money to maybe get bank financing. Maybe there's some inherent risks involved that banks wouldn't be comfortable getting themselves into. So they're going to get growth capital. Or mezzanine debt is another example of companies in that stage of their life cycle. Senior debt, though, is what I am more here to talk about, even know I've spent plenty of time talking about private capital, but senior debt